The U.S. debt is still climbing at an accelerated rate. I'll give you 18 facts on the debt. What's in the news with stories on Catalonia secession update, a journalist held at a customs checkpoint, a cop kills a woman for nothing, toy gun shuts down schools, cannabis jury nullification, and civil disobedience. Finally, an Ask Me Anything segment where I answer your questions on wedding advice, government dietary recommendations, and legalizing sex work in New Hampshire. This episode is brought to you by Health Excellence Plus, a health share that has saved my family thousands of dollars and can save you money too. Also brought to you by ForkFest, the annual decentralized Libertarian camping event that happens around PorcFest, with no tickets and no one in charge. Also brought to you by all of my dozens of supporters.
Welcome to The Lava Flow, channeling the flow of information to the libertarian, anarcho-capitalist, voluntarist, and agorist community. Find us at thelavaflow.com. Here's your host, Roger Paxton.
Thank you for joining me this week. From the state with the lowest state legislature constituent representation, with an average of 3,300 constituents per member, this is the show where I shoot from the lip to bring you the people, places, and events that everyone in the Liberty Rebellion needs to know. You can catch me on Twitter at the Lava Flow Pod. This is episode 141, A Country in Debt, and it's Tuesday, October 15th, 2019, when there have already been more than 625 people killed by police this year, and the United States debt clock shows us at more than $22 trillion, $827 billion, $400 million in debt. What's wrestling my jimmies this week? You're about to find out. Let's do it to it. The federal budget deficit for 2019 is estimated at $984 billion, a hefty 4.7% of gross domestic product and the highest since 2012. The CBO, Congressional Budget Office, said on Monday. That's $1 trillion, folks. $1 trillion that the government has overspent. That's not what they spent. That's only what they overspent. Essentially, what they put on their credit cards for the year. A single year. The deficit, which has grown every year since 2015, is $205 billion higher than it was in 2018, a jump of 26%. You know, reading this news reminded me of an article that I hung on to last month from the Foundation of Economic Education. FEE has been around since 1946 and was founded by some major players in libertarian thought, including Leonard Read and Henry Hazlitt. If you're not reading their stuff, then you really should be. The article in question is called 18 Facts on the U.S. National Debt That Are Almost Too Hard to Believe, and it's from September the 17th. There'll be a link in the show notes for the article at thelavaflow.com/141. You know, there's a reason that I read to you every week the latest national debt numbers on this show. That's because it's important. And this will eventually lead to the downfall of America. Well, I hope so anyway, and it couldn't be soon enough. There's no way the country can continue to rack up such massive debt and stay open for much longer. I say bring it on, at least in my best collapsitarian voice. You know, here's some facts that help put into perspective just how large is the sum of $22.8 trillion, brought to you by FEE. With my commentary, of course, sprinkled in here and there for good measure. You know I couldn't get away without doing that. Number 1. In order to pay down our national debt, you would have to combine the GDP of China, Japan, and India. Holy fuck, guys, that is insanity. This is how China will defeat the United States. Number 2. The United States owes $68,400 per citizen. And it gets worse, since most of these citizens are not taxpayers. Number 3. The United States owes $183,000 per taxpayer. Yes, that's apparently my share of this. And by share, of course, I mean this is the portion that they will steal from me at gunpoint. Number 4. The United States currently has $125 trillion, yes, trillion, in unfounded liabilities. That's $125 trillion that the government owes or is promised to its citizens, without having the funds to fulfill those obligations. This includes Social Security, Medicare, federal debt held by the public, and federal employees and veteran benefits. You know, all of those promises that you and I personally made to take care of these people. Number 5. According to the Nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, CBO, the U.S. debt held by the public will reach 100% of GDP in 2028. That's in 9 years. That's when the downward spiral will shift into high gear. Number 6. In 2008, interest on the federal debt was $253 billion. Interest for fiscal year 29 is roughly 89% higher. For fiscal year 2019, interest alone on the federal debt is $479 billion, almost $500 billion. In 1979, the total federal government receipts were $463 billion. So the U.S. will pay more in interest in 2019 than the entire fucking receipts that they received just 30 years ago. Number 8. In the year 2000, the federal debt was $5.67 trillion. In 2019, federal debt is 297% higher. It has grown 300% in just 19 years. Insanity. But keep voting, because, that's going to fix this shit. Number 9. At Forbes, Jim Powell writes that the old New Deal cost about $50 billion from 1933 to 1940, whereas the future cost of old New Deal programs that are still in effect is reckoned at more than $50 trillion. What the actual fuck? Number 10. A recent analysis by the CBO projected that the federal budget deficit as in the difference between federal outlays and revenues, will grow to $1 trillion alone in 2020. It's been over $1 trillion 4 times in the past, right after the economic downturn a decade ago, and now it's going to be there again. Number 11. As of December 2018, only 10 countries have worse debt-to-GDP ratios than the United States. Frankly, I'm surprised it's that many. Number 12. NPR writes that Senator Bernie Sanders' taxation and spending plans would together add $18 trillion to the national debt over a decade. Feel the burn, man. Number 13. According to the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, roughly 24% of federal spending goes to Social Security, 26% goes to federal health insurance programs, Medicaid and Medicare, 9% to safety net programs, and only 2% on transportation infrastructure. Talk about an upside-down budget. Number 14. By 2050, the cost of servicing our national debt will exceed the cost of our military spending. And that's just servicing the debt. Wow. Number 15. The cost of implementing a universal basic income, presidential candidate Andrew Yang's Central Social Program proposal, would cost $3.8 trillion per year, or roughly 85% of current federal spending. Join the Yang Gang, guys, if you're a true collapsitarian. Number 16. It would take the United States 713,470 years to pay down the national debt if we paid $1 per second of the year. Now, I don't plan to be around for that, and, frankly, I hope the U.S. government isn't either. Number 17. The U.S. government has doubled the national debt every 9 years. Doubled. Meaning that in 9 more years, it's going to be $45 trillion. And finally, number 18. The Federal Reserve purchased large amounts of federal debt as part of its quantitative easing program, thus cheapening the cost, decreasing the interest rates of money. And this is why fiat money is a trap and a tax on you and me. This is why I preach cryptocurrency so much and why I try to work for as much crypto as I can. A lot of my side gigs right now pay me in crypto, and I am happy with that. You know, guys, the only way the government is staying afloat right now is that our debtors want to be paid back, period. Not to mention that the U.S. has a pretty fucking tough military. Eventually, though, our debtors will cut up the U.S. government's credit cards and say, no more. And then they'll say, pay up. And then, once cracks like that start showing in this edifice, you may as well just grab your popcorn and watch the motherfucker burn. The more I watch this stuff, the more I begin to identify with the collapsitarians out there. Let's get this show on the road already.
What's in the news? The news you need to know from a libertarian perspective.
In secession update news, Spain's Supreme Court has sentenced former Catalonian Vice President Oriol Junqueras to 13 years in prison for sedition. In the historic trial of the Catalan separatist leaders, the Madrid Supreme Court has convicted 9 of the defendants of the uproar. Former Catalan Vice President Oriol Junqueras was sentenced to 13 years in prison. The judges rejected a guilty verdict for the prosecution's allegation of rebellion, which is punishable by imprisonment of up to 25 years. The other defendants were sentenced to long prison terms, too. In addition, some of them guilty of embezzling public funds, it said. 3 other accused ex-politicians were found guilty of disobedience. The case dealt with the role of separatist leaders in the banned independence referendum of October 1, 2017, and a resulting independence decision by the regional government of Barcelona. The main defendant was former Deputy Regional President Junqueras. Most of the defendants have been in custody for 2 years. In Catalonia, violent protests are feared by pro-independence activists. They accused the judiciary of making an example and regarded the convicted as political prisoners. Puigdemont's successor, Quim Torra, is also combative and has called for a massive mobilization. At Barcelona Airport, as well as in the railway stations and ports of the region, the number of security forces was increased significantly, even before the verdict. Look, if I were a Catalonian pro-independence activist, I would not resort to violence, ever. And that is only going to give Spain what it wants, a reason for their crackdown. But protests, sit-ins, boycotts, and any number of other nonviolent activism is very much warranted here, and they should be doing it all, starting right this minute. Now, I hope to see this, and if I do, I'm going to keep you guys updated right here. Daryl, thanks for bringing this article to my attention. In unfit to exist news, a U.S. passport screening official held a Defense One journalist's passport until he received an affirmative answer to this repeated question. You write propaganda, right? The incident took place at Dulles International Airport. News editor Ben Watson was returning from an assignment in Denmark when he entered permanent resident re-entry aisle number 17 at Dulles. After the Customs and Border Protection official asked the usual questions about undeclared fruit or meat, the interaction took an unusual and unsettling turn. Watson recalls the conversation. CBP officer holding Watson's passport says, "What do you do?" Watson says, "Journalism." CBP officer, "So you write propaganda, right?" Watson, "No." CBP officer, "You're a journalist?" Watson, "Yes." CBP officer, "You write propaganda, right?" Watson, "No, I'm in journalism, covering national security and homeland security, and with many of the same skills I used in the U.S. Army as a public affairs officer. Some would argue that's propaganda." CBP officer, "You're a journalist?" Watson, "Yes." CBP officer, "You write propaganda, right?" Watson waited 5 seconds, then said, "For the purposes of expediting this conversation, yes." CBP officer a 4th time, "You write propaganda, right?" Watson again says, "For the purposes of expediting this conversation, yes." CBP officer says, "Here you go." At that point, the CBP officer handed back his passport. The CBP official's behavior appeared to violate the spirit and possibly the letter of DHS's Ethics Standards of Conduct, DHS's Code of Conduct, and probably U.S. Customs and Border Protection's Standards of Conduct. Watson has filed a civil rights complaint with DHS, as he should. Not that that'll get him anywhere. In an email, a CBP spokesperson said that the agency is aware of and is investigating, they're investigating themselves, the allegation about an officer's alleged inappropriate conduct at Washington Dulles International Airport, adding that the agency holds its employees accountable and does not tolerate inappropriate comments or behavior. The spokesperson declined to be identified. In a separate email, a DHS spokesperson said that the agency's Civil Rights and Civil Liberties Office has received the information and is reviewing it. The spokesperson, again, declined to be identified. Freedom of the press, huh? Except that you get harassed and forced at a checkpoint to say something against your will to be able to enter your own country. Freedom of speech, huh? Yeah, right. Unfit to fucking exist. As most of you know, I was laid off from my 9-to-5 director of IT job last summer. Among the many terrifying things about losing your job is losing your health benefits. Our family went about 6 months without any kind of health insurance, and the anxiety and worry that came along with that was not insignificant. But after spending dozens of hours researching our options and quickly rejecting the $2,000 a month price tag that came with the options available with traditional insurance, we found Health Excellence Plus, a health share that was a fraction of the cost, and we're glad we did. Only a few weeks after joining as members of this health share program, my wife was diagnosed with a common skin cancer that requires an expensive procedure to remove the cancer and another surgery to repair the damage done from the cancer removal. When this is all said and done, Health Excellence Plus will have saved our family thousands of dollars, and I'll bet they can save you money too. Health Excellence Plus is a health share that meets the requirements of the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. A health share is a community of like-minded, health-focused members who have joined together to share each other's medical costs above an amount they can comfortably afford. A health share is not traditional health insurance. It is designed to be a catastrophic coverage for major items, like my wife's surgery. The cost of an average family insurance policy for a primary 45 years old with a $5,000 deductible is $1,450 per month. A Health Excellence Plus $500 initial and shareable amount with a healthcare strategy is only $783. Get started saving money today at thelavaflow.com/health. That's thelavaflow.com/health. In Bad Boys news, a Fort Worth police officer shot and killed a woman inside a home early Saturday after a neighbor reported the front door was open, police said. Tatiana Jefferson, 28, died about 2:30 a.m. in a home in the 1200 block of East Allen Avenue, according to the Tarrant County Medical Examiner's Office. Relatives said she was in the home with a nephew playing video games. The neighbor, James Smith, said that he was sorry that he had called the police. He said, "I'm shaken, I'm mad, I'm upset, and I feel it's partly my fault. If I had never dialed the police department, she'd still be alive." Partly your fault, you busybody fuck, worried about other people's business instead of your own. 2 officers responded to the neighbor's call within minutes and began searching outside the home. Fort Worth police released body camera footage that shows the officer who opened fire moving around the home, looking through a door and entering what appears to be the backyard with a flashlight. Now guys, you really should watch the video. These 2 fucking pigs are sneaking around this property slowly, quietly, even whispering to each other to stay as quiet as possible. They are acting like typical criminals and robbers instead of fucking cops doing a welfare check. I mean, if they were really doing a welfare check, why were they being so goddamn sneaky about it? They sneak all the way around this house to the backyard. In the video in the backyard, the officer spins towards one of the home's windows and yells, "Put your hands up, show me your hands," before shooting into the window. All in less than 3 seconds. Less than 3 seconds. He never once identified himself as a cop. He never gave the woman a chance to do anything. He just yelled and fired. In a statement issued Saturday afternoon, Fort Worth police said the officer perceived a threat and fired. Officers found a firearm when they entered the bedroom, but it's unclear whether Jefferson was holding the weapon when she was shot. Perceived threat, my ass. Let me tell you who should have perceived a threat here. The woman in the home. Here she has 2 unidentified people sneaking around the property, whispering, shining flashlights, walking slowly. Hell, I would have felt threatened as well, and I would have pulled my gun out in a second had this happened to me. The actions of this busybody fucking neighbor and these 2 Pork Patrol gang members led to the death of a completely innocent woman minding her own fucking business. You know, the funny thing is that this almost did happen to me just a couple of months ago. My wife was at a concert one evening with some of her friends, and me and the boys were still at home. I was working late in my study, and I saw a flashlight shining in the curtains from my front porch. Of course, this concerned me, so I slowly made my way to the front door with my hand on my pistol still in the holster, thank God. When I got around to the front door, I noticed the person on the porch was a Milton fucking cop, with his flashlight shining right at me through the side windows. They were there to serve a notice to my wife about our fucking $10 dog license that the town says we owe them for the privilege of owning a dog in their geographic area. I read that cop the fucking riot act and told him that he almost just got his ass killed over a $10 fucking dog license. After that, they started sending 2 cops at a time instead of 1. I wonder why. Back to the story. The busybody neighbor had some other things to say. He says, it makes you not want to call the police department. If you don't feel safe with the police department, then who do you feel safe with? They tell you, if you see something, say something. Well, if you do that and you cause somebody to lose their life, it makes you not want to do that. And that's sad. Where has this fucknuts been the last decade as folks are being killed by cops left and right? And this is a black guy. Look, folks, unless your life is in danger, never call the fucking police. And even then, if you can take care of it yourself, do so. Call the police to sort it out after it's over with. Fuck this busybody and this cop in the neck with a welfare check. In I Can't Make This Up news, a security alert which resulted in 3 college campuses in Florida going on lockdown was later revealed to be a false alarm involving a brightly colored toy gun. An alarm was raised after a student at Florida Atlantic University reported seeing a man with a rifle on campus. The student said the man walked towards her while she was in her car and pointed a gun at her. As a precaution, the campuses at Florida Atlantic University, Broward College, and Nova Southeastern University all went into lockdown. The colleges warned students and other people who may be on campus to seek shelter in a secure location on social media. Later on that night, it was confirmed that the lockdown had been cleared as the incident was ruled a false alarm. In the early hours of Friday, the Davie Police Department tweeted a picture of a toy gun that had been confiscated by a man seen in the area. Confiscated? What the actual fuck? It was a toy. The police force tweeted, after clearing the scene at the Davie College area, a Davie police officer located an individual with his toy gun walking on Sterling Road. They both matched the description given by the witness. The toy gun was collected, and the investigation was turned over to detectives. Investigation? Confiscation? Over a bright yellow and orange toy gun? Are you serious? Come on. I mean, this may seriously be the stupidest thing I've read this week. I mean, clearly this town has no crime in it for the cops to deal with, so they have to stay busy, I guess. And they shut down 3 colleges over this shit. I had the awesome pleasure of joining liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians for the 3rd annual ForkFest in June in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire, and I had a blast. I've now been to all 3 ForkFests, and I don't plan on missing a single one. This year, the event at least tripled in size from last year, with tons more people there and several food vendors. ForkFest is a decentralized camping event where no one is in charge. This means there is no ticket cost to attend the event. This also means that you are free to create whatever experience or event you want or would like others to enjoy. You can connect with other ForkFesters via the unofficial Telegram chat or the ForkFest forum at the unofficial website forkfest.party. That's forkfest.party. Keep an eye out for the dates for next year's event, which will likely be in late June. I hope to see you at ForkFest next year. In nullification news, a New Orleans man faced a felony marijuana charge, but too many potential jurors wouldn't even consider it. All New Orleans prosecutors had to do was convince 6 people that a waiter at a famed French Quarter restaurant was guilty of a felony marijuana charge. But, as it turned out, there weren't enough people willing to consider that possibility. Potential jurors who said they don't think marijuana should be illegal helped scotch the planned trial of Antoine's server, Jabbar Kinsey, before he could face the music. He was charged with possession of marijuana with intent to distribute after cops caught him with an ounce of pot on Bourbon Street. Call it a sign of the times. Ad hoc criminal district court judge Dennis Waldron halted the selection process after 20 of the 25 potential jurors were dropped and no more jurors remained in the day's pool. Prosecutors agreed to amend Kinsey's felony charge to a misdemeanor under a plea agreement. Kinsey agreed to spend 12 weekend days in jail and forfeit the $100 in cash that he carried on Bourbon Street in January. Kinsey's sentence is far shorter than the years he might have faced if he had been convicted as charged. His attorney said that it showed that District Attorney's office bowed to the people's will on marijuana crimes. Did he, though? I mean, he's still throwing a man in prison for 12 days over a plant and stealing $100 of his. And I guarantee you he stole the marijuana as well. A conviction for marijuana possession with intent to distribute carries a statutory range of 1 to 10 years in prison. McKenzie already had 2 prior felony convictions, one for the same charge and one for simple burglary. Stavros Panaglopoulos, the man's attorney, said that his client could have faced 15 to 20 years behind bars if he was convicted as charged, and prosecutors elected to treat him as a triple-bill habitual offender. The right of jurors to voice their objections to criminal laws stretches back centuries, folks, according to Texas defense attorney Clay Conrad. He said the courts have upheld the power of jurors to nullify charges with acquittals, despite overwhelming evidence of a defendant's guilt, if they object to the underlying law. In Fuck the Police news, 3 local women committed an act of civil disobedience under the Brooks Bridge in Fort Walton Beach, Florida. Their alleged crimes focused squarely on the distribution of a free meal of chicken fried steak, roasted potatoes, salad, cookies, fruit, and iced tea to about a dozen homeless, hungry, and elderly people, in direct defiance of a warning that they were given by the Fort Walton Beach Police Department. Good for these ladies. The catered meal was paid for and prepared by Gloria Donaldson, a retired postal worker who also provided sanitary plastic gloves to serve the food with, folding tables to serve the food on, and chairs to sit in. For 4 years, Donaldson and other volunteers have been serving meals on Wednesday afternoons at various locations around Fort Walton Beach with varying degrees of drama. Donaldson's group was asked to leave the Fort Walton landing in 2017 over lack of a permit. The permits would have cost $100 per week, about the same total of the amount of food that they pay for every week. Donaldson said, "We started off at the landing, but we got in trouble over a permit. The policeman came over here last week, told me I needed to go to Parks and Rec to get a permit. But Parks and Rec told me they only issued permits for parks and not for under the bridge. So what am I supposed to do? I also told the police and the mayor what was going on, but no one ever got back to me." Imagine that. As if our public servants are actually supposed to serve us. "I told them I was planning on coming back this week, so they at least know I'm here." Donaldson said the responding officer last Wednesday told them the free meal represented 2 dangers. First, that someone could be hit by a car because it's a public parking lot. Jesus fucking Christ. Second, that people eating the food could be poisoned. Poisoned? By these little old ladies who have been cooking for longer than these Pork Patrol gang members have been out of diapers. Come the fuck on. Booth Iberg, the lead pastor at Eternal Hope United Church of Christ, said, "Our mission here is to feed people who come here because they want to have a meal in the cool breeze and the shade and not worry about getting burned up in the sun or having to dig through trash cans. As far as the police saying they might arrest us, I really don't care one way or another. I'm over 65 years old and I have a job that's not going to check my arrest record, and I'm not sure who's going to check Donaldson's, and she's older than I am." You fucking tell them, Grandma. Holy shit, I want to bring this woman home. She's awesome. You know, Jess and I have always said that when we're old enough and the boys are out of our house and we don't have to worry about going to jail for a few days, that we will be doing civil disobedience just like this. Hell yes. You know, there may be hope yet for the plight of Donaldson Iberg and fellow volunteer Evelyn Lowry in the form of a recent court ruling. In June of 2018, the 11th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, which has appellate jurisdiction over district courts in northern Florida, ruled that feeding the homeless is expressive conduct protected by the First Amendment, after a local chapter of Food Not Bombs sued the city of Fort Lauderdale over requiring a permit to share food in public parks. In his ruling, Judge Adalberto Jordan explained that for the Fort Lauderdale chapter of the social pacifist group with over 5,000 chapters worldwide, providing food in a visible public space is an act of political solidarity meant to convey the organization's message. Donaldson said, "We read that ruling and we think that applies to us as well, and it gives us hope. Our mission is to feed people who are hungry and need a meal, whether that means they're homeless or elderly or just helping whoever is in need of a meal that day." Good for these ladies, and good luck to them.
Ask me anything. Roger will answer your questions about, well, anything. Do you have a question for Roger? Email AMA@thelavaflow.com or add your question to the latest AMA thread in the Pax Libertas Productions Facebook group.
It's that time again. I'm going to answer your burning questions. Remember, you can ask me your question by adding it to the thread that I post in the Pax Libertas Productions Podcast Fans Facebook group or by emailing me at ama@thelavaflow.com. Or if you're awesome as fuck and you support this show, you can ask me your question in the Lava Flow Super Supporters Facebook group or in Patreon. So let's jump into the questions. If you recall, I mentioned weeks ago that one of my supporters sent in 13 questions to the AMA. So first I'm going to knock out a couple of more of his. First, Drake L. asks, I'm planning for a wedding next year. Any advice? Also, I brought up getting a petting zoo for the reception as a joke, and my fiancé likes the idea and won't entirely drop it. Any advice there on getting her to change her mind? Congrats, Drake, and good luck on the wedding. As someone who's been married 4 times, I'm not so sure that I'm the person to ask for advice. The 2 words that you need to learn quickly are yes, dear. And learn to say it in a tone that is not sarcastic. I mean, I'm serious. Women can pick up on that sarcastic tone quickly. Trust me, this can save your marriage. I don't care how batshit crazy her ideas are or how wrong she is. Just say yes, dear, and move on, for your own sake. As for the petting zoo, what the fuck were you thinking, man? You dug your own hole with that one. Good luck getting out of it. Drake's next question is, what do you think of the argument that the biggest killing by the U.S. government has been through the dietary recommendations and requirements that they have spread abroad and internationally, leading to the current diabetes and heart problem epidemic? You know, I agree with this assessment wholeheartedly. The food pyramid and even the new My Plate are both a danger to society as far as I'm concerned. Both of these rely way too heavily on grains, and not enough attention is paid to healthy fats. First of all, white potatoes and French fries are considered vegetables on the My Plate. Potatoes are not vegetables, they're fucking tubers. Not to mention that refined carbs like white potatoes quickly raises the blood sugar, just like eating sugar. And for grains, they include things such as white rice and white bread, which also quickly spike your blood sugar. This is how you get diabetes, folks. You know, carbs are like poison to your body. They are silent killers, period. The killer carbs are, number 1, refined carbohydrates, number 2, high carbohydrate foods, and number 3, starchy foods. These carbohydrates cause a plethora of diseases legitimately, like obesity, diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure, stroke, cancer, Alzheimer's, dental cavities, appendicitis, ulcers, diverticulitis, gallstones, hemorrhoids, varicose veins, constipation, and a bunch of others. Now look, I'm not saying that you should never eat another carb in your life. That's impossible. But I am saying that you need to lower your carb intake dramatically. Just like arsenic in foods, it is a slow killer. But, like arsenic in things like dark fish, rice, Brussels sprouts, and chicken, you should only intake these things in small amounts. Now, I've been back on my ketogenic diet since about mid-August. Previously, I had lost right at 85 pounds on keto, and of course, I gained about 50 of that back by leaving keto for a year and a half. Since August, I've lost 31 pounds as of this morning. I lost 10.7 pounds in that 2 weeks in August when I started the diet, 14.7 pounds in September, and so far 5.6 pounds in October. I'll take that. I'm now only about 18 pounds from where I was at my lowest the last time. I couldn't be happier with that. As of now, I'm 65.5 pounds down from my highest weight and dropping more than 2 pounds a week. My highest weight back in late 2016 was 335.2. Right now, I'm at 269.7, dropping under 270 pounds finally after dropping 1.7 pounds just this morning. My goal is to be under 250 by the end of the year. If I hit that, it will be the first time that I've been under 250 pounds since right after I married Jess, almost 14 years ago. Then I'm going to keep going after that. Wish me luck. Thanks for the questions, Drake. Only 2 more to go and I'm all done with yours. And finally this week, Jason C. asks, with New York and LA and other states working to legalize sex work, what has been New Hampshire's progress on this? Thanks for the question, Jason. By the way, I'm super jealous of your pictures at the Homesteaders of America conference. You know, the progress hasn't been as much as I'd hoped to see in New Hampshire yet. Now, New Hampshire has had bills before its legislature several times in the past, thanks in large part to a former Free Stater representative, although it has not yet passed. Unfortunately, the uber-conservative governor, Chris Sununu, is very much against it, since he is a cop-sucker, and the cops' lobbies are against this, of course, because they have to have something to do, right? Sununu has been quoted as saying, "There are those in the legislature that want to explore legalizing prostitution. I am 100% against it and would veto the bill if it reaches my desk." I guess he'd prefer these women do all of this in the dark without any kind of protections at all. What a dick. I hope the legislator keeps this in the forefront for people. Lately, a national group that advocates for the decriminalization of prostitution has hired New Hampshire lobbyists with Republican ties and is pushing for a review of the state's prostitution laws. Representatives of Decriminalize Sex Work is the group, and they have their eyes set to change this law in New Hampshire. Here's wishing them luck. Thank you for all the questions, guys. Thank you for listening to the show this week. As always, I need to thank my favorite wedding videographer, Jessica, for her help with the show. For the show notes to this episode, where I put links and other information that's been on the show, go to thelavaflow.com/141. I have one new supporter this week. Braden C. became a $1 per episode donor through Patreon. Thank you so much, Braden. So thanks to all of my awesome supporters, including Braden, I am at $233.25 per episode, or 47.5% of the way towards my next goal of $500 per episode. Thank you for all your support, guys, really. Remember, when I hit this next goal, I'm going to be upping the content I bring you from half an hour per week to a full hour. I know you want more content from me, and I want to give it to you. So add your pledge today to help me bring you twice the lava flow that you're getting today. So exercise your free market muscles by going to thelavaflow.com/support and giving a donation of as little as $1 a week using Federal Reserve notes through my site or using cryptocurrencies through Bitbacker. I want to be able to bring you more content soon, so make sure to add your donation today to help make that happen. I don't have any new reviews since my last episode, but if you have a minute and you want to hear your review read right here on the show, please go to thelavaflow.com/Apple and leave me a rating and a review. All the cool kids are doing it. Thank you to everyone who's left me a rating and a review so far. You guys rock. To all of you who haven't, can you guys help me out and go leave a review for me? Go to thelavaflow.com/Apple to do that now. Until next time, keep striking the root.
Thank you for listening to The Lava Flow at thelavaflow.com. Don't miss an episode. Subscribe now at thelavaflow.com/subscribe. This has been a Pax Libertas Productions podcast.